from the footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, bring you our 2014 NFL Draft Prospect Rankings video. We're going to take a look at the defensive end position. We're going to look at my top 10, some small school prospects, as well as some sleepers that you want to keep an eye on.
Number 1 on my list is Jadeveon Clowney out of South Carolina, 6'5", 275 pounds, a junior early entry into the draft. And here's a guy that has great athleticism, explosive, and displays tremendous strength at the point of attack, so you're not going to move him off the spot. Now, he doesn't play with technique, and he doesn't have a counter move, and he plays blind at times. Those are some things you want to see him work on at the next level. I know he had 3 years to do that at South Carolina, so you wonder if he's going to get better, or what you see now is what you're going to get as a pro. But what you see right now is very good and definitely worth a first-round grade. At number 2, I have D Ford out of Auburn, a guy that can also play outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense. He has excellent hands, a variety of moves, and is able to bend and accelerate to the quarterback, a guy at 6'2", 245 pounds. Now, he tends to get too reliant on his speed rush, and he gives up his chest too early, so his hands have to get up a little bit quicker at the next level to beat those left tackles or those right tackles. But this is a guy that came on strong this season, played great throughout the course of the year, and as well as in the Senior Bowl. But I definitely believe this is a guy that's not a one-year wonder, and the best is yet to come for D Ford out of Auburn. And I'm a big fan of Marcus Smith out of Louisville at 6'4", 260 pounds. Another one of these players that can play outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense. Reminds me a lot of Sean Merriman that played for the San Diego Chargers and the Buffalo Bills. He's extremely athletic. He plays assignment football, and he's fundamentally sound. He's explosive, and he plays well in space. Now, he has to anchor better in a running game. At times, he tends to get washed down the line or get pushed back into the second level. But this is a player that can definitely get it done as a pass rusher, and that's what you want to see at the next level. Guys that can really change the game with the ability to get to the quarterback. Kareem Martin out of North Carolina has great spatial awareness, and he understands leverage. This is a guy that's probably the most technically sound defensive end prospect in this year's draft, and he has long arms and uses them well. Now, he lacks a counter move and doesn't use his hands well to disengage from the offensive tackle. Those are two elements of his game that he's going to have to work on. But when we look at his skill set, reminds me a lot of Carlos Dunlap that plays for the Cincinnati Bengals. One of the most underrated defensive end prospects in this draft class is Jesse Dixon out of Lamar at 6'3", 265 pounds. He was well coached in college. He has an explosive first step. He plays fast throughout the course of the play. He's versatile, played every defensive line position for Lamar in that 3-4 defense. Also has that tremendous upside. We talked about that, and great change of direction skills. Now, at times, he tends to get out of position versus the run, and he's a little raw as a prospect. But when you look at his skill set and what he brings to the table, he reminds me a lot of Tamba Ali that plays for Kansas City. Scott Crichton out of Oregon State at 6'3", 265 pounds is an early entry. He's a junior. He has good all-around game. He has good feel for the pass rush, good awareness, and he plays with leverage. Now, he's not as stout at the point of attack as you would like. You want to see him get stronger in his base, and he doesn't have active hands, so he has to get a little bit more violent when he's taking on these offensive tackles. Now, one thing about his game that I like, he has played across that defensive line, so that adds that versatility and flexibility to a defensive coordinator in that defensive front. DeMarcus Lawrence out of Boise State is another fine prospect at 6'3", 245 pounds. Now, this is a guy that doesn't stay blocked. He is active at the line of scrimmage, strong point of attack player, and is solid versus the run. Now, he's not as athletic as you would like, and he has limited agility. His change of direction skills have to improve, but overall, his skill sets remind me a lot of Jabal Sheard that plays for the Cleveland Browns. You can play him on the line of scrimmage or outside as an outside edge rusher in the 3-4, so I think he does have that versatility that you want at the next level. There's a lot to like about James GAYLE out of Virginia Tech. He's a very good athlete, good change of direction skills. He bends and accelerates well to the quarterback. He's 6'4", 255 pounds with a lot of Jason Babin to his game. Now, he has to use his hands a lot better, and at times he loses leverage, which could cause him to get himself out of the play. But overall, very solid skill set. Like I said before, a lot to like about his game, which is why he's ranked 8th on my list. Part 1 of the outstanding Missouri tandem is Coney Ealy, 6'5", 275 pounds. He extends well. He's an excellent penetrator and has good functional strength. You won't move him off the spot, and he can collapse a pocket. Now, he's not overly athletic and plays way too high. Reminds me a lot of Osi Umenyora that plays for the Atlanta Falcons. At times, you're going to see him run himself out of the play, and that has to change at the next level. When he does play with great knee bend, plays with great leverage, he's virtually unstoppable. Rounding out my top 10 is Coney Ealy's teammate, Michael Sam, 6'2", 260 pounds. Reminds me a lot of Robert Ayers that plays for the Denver Broncos. He's able to flatten and accelerate to the quarterback. He's also able to hold his own at the point of attack. I think he can also be an outside edge rusher in a 3-4 defense. Now, he's not explosive, and he doesn't possess a variety of moves, and he doesn't have the quickness that you would like to see out of a guy that's billing himself as a pass rusher, but there's enough skill set to be there, enough production to warrant, again, a 3rd to 4th round grade. Now, here are some small college prospects you want to look out for in this draft class, starting with Terrence Fadday out of Marist, 6'3", 285 pounds. He has excellent strength at the point of attack. He is your ideal 5 technique in the 3-4 defense that collapses the pocket well, and he has been highly productive throughout the course of his career. He has 38.5 career sacks. Now, he's not the quickest, and he needs to add finesse to his game to round out his skill set, but overall, I like what I see, and he reminds me a lot of Kendall Reyes that plays for the San Diego Chargers. Keep an eye on Zach Moore out of Concordia St. Paul, which is in Minnesota, 6'6", 285 pounds. He plays with great technique, and he plays like he's 6'6", uses his length very well, and he's able to bend well for a guy that size. Now, he must get more stout at the point of attack, and he's not overly quick. Reminds me a lot of Quentin Coples that plays for the Jets, so you can move him around your defensive front. He can even line up in a 7 or even a 9 or even an outside edge rusher in a 3-4. It gives you a lot of versatility if you're a defensive coordinator. A lot of people are familiar with Ethan Westbrooks out of West Texas A&M, 6'3", 265 pounds. The guy that did a great job down at the East-West Shrine game. He has good power at the point of attack. He's very solid versus the run, so he can be an every down defensive end. He's not as explosive, and he has limited variety of moves. He's more of a power player, but definitely a lot to like about Westbrooks and what he brings to the table as a small college prospect. Another defensive end prospect that many are familiar with is Larry Webster out of Bloomsburg at 6'5", 250 pounds, a former basketball player, a guy that came to Bloomsburg as a basketball player, so he has the upside that you want to see. He plays with great length and also very good leverage. Now, he tends to think too much out there on the field, and I think that ties to him not being overly quick or sudden. He's not as instinctive as you would like, but again, a guy that just started to learn how to play the game. 2 years ago, he led the conference in sacks with double-digit sacks, but overall, we look at the way he plays with that length and that athleticism, reminds me a lot of Devin Taylor that plays for the Detroit Lions. One of the most talked about prospects in this year's draft class is Eli Ndiaye out of Nebraska-Kearney, an outstanding Division II program, 6'4", 245 pounds, is built more like an outside linebacker. I think he can make that transition if need be. Is similar to Andy Malumba that plays for the Green Bay Packers. He has great acceleration off the edge, and he's a great hustle player and has that closing speed to the quarterback. Now, he's very raw and struggles to anchor and set the edge versus the run, so he's going to have to get stronger if he wants to be an every down defensive end. And I'm a big fan of Colton Underwood that plays for Illinois State at 6'3", 255 pounds. Plays a lot like Quentin Groves for the Cleveland Browns. His read and recognition skills is outstanding. He's able to redirect with acceleration, and he disrupts plays with speed. So that's what you want to see out of a guy coming off the edge. Now, his over-aggressiveness at times tends to put him in bad position versus the run, so he can't get washed. He can't get blocked out of a play, but you have to like the hustle. You have to like the redirection skills, the acceleration, and the closing speed to the quarterback out of Underwood. Another underrated defensive end would be Chris Shout out of Minnesota State at 6'4", 270 pounds. Plays a lot like Mike Catapano coming out of Princeton that now plays for the Kansas City Chiefs, a guy that can play in a 3-4 or 4-3. In the 3-4, he can be a 5. In a 4-3, he can be a 7 or even a 9. He has excellent hand technique, and he gets good extension with his hands and also does a great job in anchoring versus run. Now, he has an average first step, and he has to get off cut blocks better, but overall, love his skill set, has been a very productive player at the Division II level throughout the course of his career. Now, here are some good, solid mid-round guys that you want to look out for at the defensive end position, starting with Chris Smith out of Arkansas at 6'1", 265 pounds. Plays a lot like James Harrison for the Cincinnati Bengals. He has an excellent bull rush and is very good versus the run and does a great job in getting to the quarterback. Now, he has average ball get off, and he gets washed a lot at the line of scrimmage, so he's going to have to play with better leverage and better eyes at the next level to be consistent. I believe CASSIUS Marsh out of UCLA will end up being a better pro than he was a collegiate, and he was very solid at UCLA, but I think he played out of position at 6'4", 255. They used him as a 5 technique. I think he's better as a 4-3 defensive end. He's active at the line of scrimmage, and he's able to get off blocks and has good football awareness. Now, he loses the hand battle a lot, allowing offensive linemen to get into his chest, and that's going to have to change at the next level. IK and Ndiaye out of Louisiana Tech reminds me so much of Cliff Averill that plays for the Seattle Seahawks. He's a short guy at 6'1", but he's not small. He's 275. He's a relentless edge rusher. He flattens and accelerates to the quarterback exceptionally well. Now, he doesn't anchor. His short arms limit his ability to extend versus the run. But when you look at a guy that can play that wide 9 and get to the quarterback, look no further than IK and Ndiaye. Will Clark out of West Virginia is 6'6", 271 pounds. He's another player that had an excellent week down at the East-West Shrine game. Good ball get off. He wins the hands battle and shows the ability to bend and anchors well versus the run and plays with good length. So he plays all of 6'6" and uses his size very well. Reminds me a lot of Cam Johnson that plays for the Colts. Now, he struggles to get off blocks, and his hands tend to die once he's engaged. So he's going to have to do a better job of disengaging from offensive linemen at the next level. But you see a guy that can play outside in the 4-3 or inside in the 3-4. Jeff Code out of Texas was a highly touted recruit coming into that Longhorn program at 6'4", 250 pounds. He uses his length very well. He shows good burst and acceleration off the snap. Now, he doesn't play with a plan. This is a guy that doesn't have a plan of attack. Once the ball snaps, he tends to guess and change his mind as he's going throughout the course of a play, and that causes him to get out of a play, whether it be versus the run or even versus the pass, and he struggles to bend consistently. He's going to have to get a lot better in order to be much more consistent as a pro than he was as a collegiate. Keep an eye on Colby Way out of Buffalo. His teammate Khalil Mack probably will go in the top 10 and gets a lot of the headlines, and rightfully so, but Colby Way is a guy that's very underrated, plays a lot like Mike DeVito that plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. He has solid all-around game. He uses his hands very well, and he doesn't get moved off the spot. Now, his only knocks are that he's not explosive or quick, but this is a guy that can be an ideal 5 technique, in my opinion, at the next level, or even kick down as a 1 in a 4-3. Another mid-round graded prospect you want to watch out for is Aaron Lynch out of South Florida, 6'5", 245 pounds. He's a redshirt sophomore and plays a lot like Connor Barwin that plays for the Philadelphia Eagles. He has good ball get off. He has big-time pass rushing potential as either a Leo or an outside linebacker. Now, he doesn't play with leverage. He plays blind as well, and he's not a power player. Those are 3 things that must improve at the next level if he wants to realize his potential as a pro. Now, here are my final 2014 prospect rankings for the defensive end position, and as you can see, they are color-coded by round grade, and only 2 first-round graded prospects this year in Jadeveon Clowney and D. Ford. Marcus Smith is a guy that I think that's going to have an excellent career as a pro. Even down all the way at number 13, keep an eye on IK and Ndiaye out of Louisiana Tech. Great edge rusher despite only being 6'1". Now, when we look at 15 through 30, still some great talent in the middle to late rounds of the draft. Ed Stinson out of Alabama. Taylor Hart, a guy that can play across the defensive line coming out of Oregon. You also look at Josh Morrow out of Stanford. And even down in round 7 with guys like Chaz Sutton and also Danico Autry, 2 guys that have been very productive throughout the course of their collegiate career. And Brent Urban out of Virginia at 6'6", 298 pounds. He doesn't bend well, so you don't want him as an outside rusher in a 4-3, but he will be an ideal 5 tech in the 3-4.